my graduate work, I'm working on the adult female blue-winged teal, where we're putting these bat packs transmitters out on them. And specifically, we're looking at habitat selection all the way from Prairie Canada down to South America, as well as the migration phenology. So what time these birds are initiating migration, when they're terminating migration, the duration at each of their stopovers, and the number of stopovers that these birds are making.
Brett came into this project at the right place at the right time. He was down here working on a white front project for me for a few winters, and the technology had advanced to the point that the same transmitter technology that we're using on white fronts became miniaturized. And Brett's last winter here, we got some private funding together to do a pilot study. We bought a handful of transmitters, and Brett had already been pretty well trained and experienced doing lots of other projects, and kind of just fell into the right place at the right time. We got the pilot project off the ground with very few hiccups, and Brett decided that he wanted to pursue graduate studies, and we got the funding for it to get him an assistantship. So it's been great having him along. You know, he can be the data caretaker for all this stuff, and it takes a pretty good burden off of me. And of course, it's a novel project. We don't know a whole lot about blue-winged teal. They spend more time on the wintering grounds than any other species. The early teal season here is like a holiday to a lot of Louisianans. It's kind of the first real crack at hunting seasons in the fall, and it's a pretty special time and a pretty special bird. So we're looking forward to seeing what he's going to tell us about all this work here in the next 6 to 9 months as he wraps up his thesis.
We began our project back in 2019, and our first year of the project we deployed 19 transmitters, with 10 of them down in Louisiana and 9 up in Yorkton, Saskatchewan. And then due to COVID, we ended up relocating our fall deployments over to South Dakota. So now we're marking birds in South Dakota and down here in Louisiana. And it's a big collaborative project where we've got funding coming from Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries, Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries Foundation, as well as Ducks Unlimited and Ducks Unlimited Canada. And just like, we've had a lot of numerous private donors as well, and just great landowners that allow us to be able to come out here and trap on their properties.
them in the water. Don't take that to the water.
And we just made a catch on some teals. We caught a few hundred, and this morning they weren't really cooperating in the blind, but after about a 40-minute sit, they finally got right. So now we just gotta finish cleaning up gear and get the birds back and start working them up.
Yeah, so essentially we just got everything out of the net as quick as we could, and we got away from the site because we're going to try to trap here for the next couple of weekends. So we carefully got all the birds loaded up and bring them back here. We're going to wait for a little bit of morning sun, let them dry out a little bit. So we're starting to process them here. We're thinning them out, getting the females out, trying to separate them for Brett, and getting the swabs going.
Hey, I'm Deb Carter from the Southeastern Cooperative Wildlife Disease Study. This is a Lindy foy tick. We come down here and check for avian influenza and how it moves through this flyway. We're going to swab some ducks, and when we swab the ducks, we're testing to see if the ducks have live virus right now in them. And a Lindy's going to bleed them, and when she bleeds them, what we find out from some testing is what antibodies they have to flu. So they've had flu already. So that's what we test here.
Is 149 good to go?
Yeah, good to go, good to go. All right, you can let that one go too. Yep. And there's
Hi, my name is Brittany Worm, student at SFA, a student chapter with DU. This is my second time coming out here to band. I came last weekend. It was pretty cool, got to experience it. Wouldn't have been able to do it without Joe pulling me into Ducks Unlimited and getting to do this. Haven't even been a DU member for a whole year, and I'm already having fun. I'm glad I get to experience all this and get to be part of the research.
So we just got back from picking up the net and getting all these birds back to where we're going to mark them up. And today I'm going to end up putting some of these Ornatella 10-gram transmitters. They're a solar-powered transmitter that basically transmits all the data through cell phone towers. So basically, that'll allow us to be able to track them throughout their full annual cycle from Prairie, Canada, all the way down to South America. So like right now, we've got our units programmed to take a location once every hour, and then if the battery gets real low, it'll get down to like once every 4 hours. And then these units also have an accelerometer built into it, so it's reading like an XYZ, and it'll be able to tell you like whether the transmitter's in like that, basically whatever position the transmitter's in. And if you get like a mortality, you'll just see those lines like all flat line on those graphs. So it's pretty useful for all that, and be able to pick up nesting as well. But yeah, so we're gonna start marking some birds here real quick and let them go and start tracking them. Yeah, right now we're taking 5 different morphometric measurements of the bird. It basically tells you like whether you've got like a short fat bird or like a long skinny bird, because you'll get like a long skinny bird that weighs like 450 grams, but then you'll also get like a short fat bird that may only weigh like 370 grams. So it just kind of gives you like a better gauge of what size these birds actually are. So right now we've got the bird in the bag and just getting a weight on the scale.
be about 4:30.
All right. So with the transmitters, the weight can't exceed more than 3% of the bird's body mass. So like all of our birds, they have to be at least over 333 grams because we got these 10-gram units that we're trying to deploy here. So 430 is gonna be plenty big. Now we're gonna take the caliper and measure the total head length, which is like on the back part of the head, there's a flat spot and you go all the way to the tip of the bill. It's like 83.87. Now we're going to measure the length of the bill. And we just go from the little V notch at the top of the bill to the little nail on the end of the bill. So 42.28. Now the tarsus, which is just the bird's leg from joint to joint, 37.60. Now we measure the natural wing chord of the bird. So this is from the joint, basically the shoulder of the bird, down to the end of the primary, so we're around 180. Then with these transmitters, we ended up developing a 3.5 millimeter wide elastic material. So like as the bird basically grows and shrinks as it's feeding and everything, the strap will kind of like adjust for it. So like each one of these is custom fit to the bird. So we've got the neck loop, which all we do is have it sit in front of the shoulder of the wing, and then we loop it around underneath, and it sits on the furcula, which is basically just the wishbone of the bird, and then that way it prevents it from sliding up on us. And then this back loop here is just the back body loop, so it goes behind the wing but in front of the bird's thigh. So like you got these flank feathers on the side of the bird, so we just try to tuck it up there as far as we can because there's not a whole lot of wiggle room between there and where the bird's thigh is. And we loop it around and do the same thing on the other side. Alright, if you want to hold her straight up and down. So right now we're just making sure that the strap gets preened underneath her feathers good, that way she's not messing around with it later. Here, you want to move these fingers. Yeah, so it's sitting pretty flat there, so that's good. Now we're just making sure that the tension is going to be right on the bird. So kind of is like a rough rule of thumb, like just see your cuticle of your finger just can barely get underneath there. And that's worked pretty well. Now all we do here is just a single knot that we're going to end up gluing. That way the transmitter doesn't slip off on us. Yeah, now we just want to make sure that those feathers are sitting on like the right side of the elastic material. That way it's not going to be messing up like as she's flying the aerodynamics of the bird at all or anything like that. And she's not going to have to mess with trying to get those feathers preened correctly then. Right now I'm just making sure that the elastic material is all sitting right on the bird, and it seems like everything, like the wings are all free, so this bird's ready to go put in the crate. We're going to let her rest in there, get used or acclimate to the transmitter a little bit. This is our third bird of the morning. We got 3 more to go, and once we get done with that last one, we'll give her about 10 minutes and group release all these birds. It's like as we release the birds, these hens will basically just kind of follow all the drakes out, so they usually fly off a lot better that way and fly out of sight. So get her back in the crate. If you want to grab another bird, we can get started on the 4th transmitter.
Okay, so right-handed, left palm. Hold him right up against your chest. That way you've got his leg like this, because he's going to kick and scratch and try to throw the band off. Then you're going to take your band, right leg, band number's upside down on the bird's leg, so it's right side up to you. Put it on there, maintain control of the foot, hold the band. Then take your pliers. It's helpful to hold it like this. Don't try to do it like this. All kinds of people try, but so just get a hold of it like this. Put the jaws towards the back like that. One squeeze so it's almost touching. Rotate the band a quarter turn. Put the gap in the top and just gently work them back together. That's all there is to it. You want it perfectly round, no seams, no sharp corners, not cockeyed or anything on there. You want it perfectly smooth so it spins around his leg. That way it'll wear it evenly and it'll wear it for as long as possible. And these are all going to be after you hatch your birds. They've all survived a hunting season, so we're not aging anything. It's just males and females. They're all getting the same. Questions? Good? Okay. Go ahead, grab one.
Awesome.
So we just finished up putting the last transmitter on these birds today, so we're gonna put this one in the crate and give her about 10 minutes to acclimate to the unit and release all of our birds together. Yeah, so in a few minutes here, we're gonna release all these birds together, and after that, we'll provide some maps as well, and you guys can see where these birds are actually traveling, both on spring and fall migration. All right, so we're just gonna count up to 3, and on the count of 3, just give your bird a nice gentle toss up in the air, and then all of you with transmitters, just like a split second behind all the other birds. All right, 1, 2, 3.
That was one of the coolest things I've ever done. I don't know what else to say. I love it. It was really cool to learn about the process. All my friends, everybody gets all excited when they get a banded duck. I've seen them, so it was cool to see the whole process and the learning and the biology behind it and tracking them.
What it means to me to be able to come out here and experience this kind of stuff, it means that I get to actually see what's working behind the scenes for my waterfowl season. What actually goes into all of it makes me realize how much work and effort's actually put into it. And I think a lot more waterfowl hunters should, come out here and experience all of this, just so they would know.
Well, we just got finished up wrapping up, releasing all the birds. All the transmitter birds flew off real good, and the next day or so, these birds will start checking in, and we'll be able to start following these birds as they make their way back up north to the breeding grounds. All right, so this is the spring migration paths of some of our marked female blue-winged teal. And as you can see in this, you can see our capture site down here in Louisiana, where a lot of these birds are taking off on their spring migration. And in the spring, you can see that they're making a pretty quick migration. So some of my preliminary results have shown that these birds are leaving about late April and then arriving to the prairies mid-May. So they're making this journey in about 20 days for most of these birds. But yeah, so we're finding like the number of stopover sites during the spring as well is about 3 sites that these birds are stopping, and it's typically between 1 and 14 days that the birds are stopping at each one of these places. And you can see all of our birds are staying within the Mississippi and Central Flyway as well. I mean, overall, nothing too surprising. It kind of lines up with other data that we have on other dabbling duck species. So like in the springtime, they're just making it like a real quick migration because they're obviously wanting to get up to the prairies and start breeding, and they kind of have that internal driver in them that's telling them that they got to get up there and find their nesting site. So it kind of lines up with other dabbling duck research as well. So yeah, as these birds are migrating, you can see like some of these individuals, they're making these migrations like real quick. So like, obviously, like before I said, there's that most of those birds are making it about 20 days, but there are individuals that are making it in as short as 2 days and individuals making it as long as 45 days. So you do see a little bit of variation, but I mean, on average, it's right around the 20-day mark. I guess like the real big takeaway would just be like the timing that these birds are heading up to the prairies. So blue-winged teal are a late spring migrant, so just ensuring that like there's that habitat across the landscape when these birds are passing through. It's important that these birds are getting all the nutrients that they need, especially as they're getting up to the breeding grounds and start sitting on eggs. Alright, so this is a map of our fall migration of our adult female blue-winged teal that we've marked. As you can see, like a lot of those birds up in like the northeast part of South Dakota is just where one of our capture sites was located. So that's where a lot of these birds are originating from, but you'll see birds up in Prairie, Canada and throughout North and South Dakota as well that were previously marked. So as these birds are heading south, like there's quite a bit more variability in where some of these birds went compared to like the spring migration map that I just showed you. So we've got birds in the Mississippi, Central, and Atlantic Flyway. But yeah, a lot of these birds, like our preliminary results have shown that these adult female blue-winged teal are leaving on average like around the end of September and then arriving to their southern wintering areas about the end of October. But it is important to note like these are adult female blue-winged teal, which migrate a little bit later than the adult males. But yeah, so we end up having birds settling like within the United States, mostly like in Louisiana and Texas, and then a couple birds down in Florida and South Carolina. But in the like south of the U.S. border, we've had birds in Mexico, the Cayman Islands, Cuba, South America, as well as Belize, and then this year we had I think 3 or 4 birds wintering down in Honduras as well. But during the fall, a lot of these birds are making their migration between like 1 and 45 days. So a couple of these birds, they make it in a real quick manner getting down to their southern wintering grounds, whereas other birds end up taking their time. But on average, for most of these birds, it's right around 30 days that these birds are taking to get to their wintering areas. If you have any other additional questions, feel free to reach me at my email address. Otherwise, thanks for tagging along, and feel free to subscribe.